Hello, welcome back. It is week 134 on Out on That Line podcast. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
This one could go either way, Jeff. Could go either way. Depending on the shape this discussion for this particular album goes, I have some thoughts. I'll be curious to hear yours. But first, you got to tell me, Jeff, how you doing, baby?
I'm doing very well, and I also feel like we're on the precipice of disaster, possibly,
Mm.
with the review of this album. So I think it's a good idea if we just get right into it. It's going to be Nicki Minaj and Pink Friday 2. Now, Nicki Minaj, our problematic queen, I don't think we've covered her on this podcast, correct? Other
This
than
is
maybe
her first
mentions here and
album in
there.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is she existed long before this podcast ever did. She was the queen long before this podcast, and I dare say after this album, Alex, she remains with that crown on her head.
So you like this one?
I did, and it sounds like you didn't.
Jeff, I fucking hated it.
So I will grant you there were some spots on this album because there was a lot of album on this album. There were some spots on this album. You could have cut this down to like a good 40 minutes, a nice tight one, and I think would have been a lot more successful. But overall, I really was pretty pleased with this. And this might sound crazy, especially now knowing how you feel about it. I think I'd rather go back and listen to this one than I would Megan Thee Stallion's Good News.
Wait 1 second. You think that this album was better than Good News? Are you saying it's better or it's more re-listenable?
Both. I think
Oh,
because it's more re-listenable, I think in this instant makes it better. I was pretty bullish on Good News by Megan Thee Stallion, but there were some like standout songs for me on this that for no other reason than I think she just can be flat out hysterical with how she delivers things. And I think the kind of, I guess, like dynamic range she goes through as far as like there's singing, she does that kind of like monster alter ego type of thing sometimes. I think that keeps things fresh enough on an album this long. I will say the main criticism is that it is too long. I mean, an hour and 10 minutes, and apparently there's more getting released that's supposed to be like on this album. So there's certainly plenty that can be cut out. Like a lot of the collaborations I thought weren't that strong. I felt like the songs that were just her were a lot stronger than when she had other people on there for a guest verse or to kind of just collaborate on the whole song. I just overall like not really having a ton of Nicki Minaj history and experience other than what's been on the radio. Overall was pretty bullish on this album. I'll tell you.
see, I fucking hate Drake. So the second that song came on, I was out. She like lost me pretty much off the bat. That's a lie. The singing stuff that kind of happened at the beginning, I was like, all right, we might be getting some kind of interesting, it's like Pink Friday, but it's Nicki Minaj 10, 12, whatever years older. I thought it was going to be like we were talking before the show about the new album that Andre 3000 had. I have not listened to it. You have. And you said that the story behind it was he didn't feel like he had anything to rap about anymore. So he just started making flute music. And I thought maybe we were going slightly in that direction. And then immediately all pretense is abandoned. And it's just these like totally bog standard rap songs that like, to me, nothing on this album stacks up to anything off of Doja Cat's last album, which I said was like, hey, it's a B plus student. It's a B plus student that beats the dick off Pink Friday 2. For me, let me tell you one thing that really bugged me, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. The use of sampling. How many times she samples something, like how many songs she's sampling something in, and just how much of the heavy lifting the sample does. Like Freaky, that is all Rick James, baby, all the way through. It like half of them are literally the song.
So that one in particular is one I would just just cut out of there. I mean, it's been everywhere. I think that was like the lead single and like the big hit right off the bat from this one. Um, I can certainly hear what you're saying, but I would disagree on a song like the first song, lead track, "Are You Gone Already?" is kind. I think it's a conversation between her and her kid, and that's you can your mileage may vary on how successful you think it is, but it's kind of a cool idea. Certainly not something you would expect from Nicki Minaj, who you're used to just firing arrows, of which she fires a quiver full on this album. I think what she's trying to do is stir up some controversy. You know, Eminem might not have been the first king of controversy. She might not be the first queen of controversy, but she's going to create some anyway. And especially the song FTCU, Fuck the Club Up. I thought that song was a banger. And she definitely, I don't know who, there's a lot of times that I don't know who she's talking about. There was one spot, and honestly, she talks so much shit across this whole album. I can't remember exactly which song, but she says something, "Stay in your Tory lane." Clearly, the song is about Megan the Stallion. And I got to think that we're going to hear back from Megan the Stallion. So this might be some old school, like East Coast, West Coast kind of stuff, but I guess more like East Coast down South kind of stuff. I do like the feeling, the aggressiveness it gave me. Sometimes some of the things she said were like straight up just out of hand, raunchy, like whether it was like a sexual thing or if it was just like a violent thing. I mean, she doesn't she's not afraid to push that envelope, in a similar way that we used to hear in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where a lot of the rap was like shockingly disgusting and kind of what they were saying. And there's a lot of spots where I think that goes too far on this album, like when she's talking about having her boyfriend beat somebody up. I'm pretty sure that her boyfriend, maybe now husband, I don't know, is a like convicted sex offender, has like multiple assault charges, like generally not a good dude. And I might not even have like the most serious of charges there. I'm not even sure. Um, but she's done some like pretty horrendous things in the past. Like she does get involved in the drama, like she gets deep in it. And I think this album is full of her just wanting to get back involved in that again.
I think Megan the Stallion is a poor one to go after, and especially the way that she did it, where it's like using the guy that literally shot her as the punchline is like, what the hell did Megan the Stallion do? I don't know. Did she do anything? Are there some kind of court documents that I could see that would demystify this whole thing? And that's the point is I don't care about any of that shit unless the music is really interesting. And this just was not interesting. Like, again, it started off, I'm like, oh, she's going to sing on some stuff. She's going to make the stuff like she was super early in her career. Roman Reloaded, that's a fun album. That there's some cool, kooky shit going on in that. And it's all the same kind of raunchiness and like absolute cutting shots at people and the like you said, violent and sexual and having a big butt. That's the trifecta of, they have like the triad of serial killers. This is the triad of great rappers. And like all the elements are there and then just like didn't come together and coalesce around like a song that could make it happen. It's like, well, I'd rather she just publish a book of poetry about like, I'll stick my dick in your face at knife point and I'm Nicki Minaj. I'd rather like read that in a book of poems than I would listen to it.
That's a strong criticism on this one. I will I will say that the Lil Wayne, when I saw he was on here, I was like, okay, we're gonna have Lil Wayne verse, but I think is he on every one of her albums? I'm not sure. Because I know she's like part of Cash Money Records or whatever, the same thing he was part of.
You
Is
ever
he
hear
on
truffle
all of them?
butter?
Yeah.
Because he's on truffle butter,
He
baby.
sure is. He sure is. And that I was very underwhelmed by that song. Like I said, like the J. Cole song, I'm like, okay, J. Cole, you can make a lot of words, like you can make some very complex rhymes, but I feel like you can get too far into trying to be so deep that you just end up drowning yourself, and I think that's what he ends up doing on the album that we did of his, and then also on this song. I think he just like tries to have such a deep message that just doesn't land. I think when they're all deep messages, that none of them sound that deep. um the Cowgirl song, was terrible. I
See,
mean,
I actually will say I love the cowboy song. It is absolutely terrible, but boy, is it an earworm. I laughed. I guffawed out loud at the gym when I was listening to that song.
yeah, that one. I mean, that definite like novelty type of song. Wasn't crazy about it, that's for sure. Super Freaky Girl, yeah, that can go. The Future song, bad. The last few songs were not good, but there was enough. Like, and there was, like I said, it sounds like that should be half the album, right? That I said wasn't very good. No, that was like a quarter of the album, or the
Mhm.
songs that I just said were not good. Like I said, FTCU, Beep Beep was a good one. Fallen for You was okay. Pink Birthday had some like good, clever lines in it. Red Ruby to Sleaze, I feel like was where she got maybe the weirdest on the whole thing. And as far as the samples go, I realized like you had asked about that a ways back, and I got wrapped in my own BS. Um, the samples I feel like in a lot of places add to it because it's fun, it's familiar, and then you hear like a different version of that, and like that can be fun because I always enjoyed things like the group Girl Talk, or I guess just the guy that calls himself Girl Talk that just does those mashup songs, and a lot of those are bangers. I mean, absolute bangers. So I've never been one that like thought you could do too much sampling. If it works, it works, you know. And I feel like with all music, if it works, it works. There's a lot of spots where it was boring. You know, I didn't think it added to it. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it was boring. Certainly didn't like add anything to the song. Um, and I think there was a lot of spots where it was very good. And I think it was the juxtaposition. I can understand why you would fall more on the side of that this wasn't good. um, I don't think she's got the ability to go as deep or as like meaningful as someone like Megan the Stallion does. But when it comes to just like talking shit and making bangers, I don't know that there's a lot that do it better than Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, that's the kind of the thing for me is none of this is to take away her talent and her status and her ability. That stuff's like very much it was in there at one point, it's still in there. I'm just kind of I was underwhelmed by the way it was presented, and then it was too fucking long, and I'm like, "Oh, the whole album's gonna be." I'm telling you, Roman Reloaded is fun. There are some clunkers on Roman Reloaded. Grand piano, but all of which
That
is
was
to
a
say,
that was a perfect fart sound, by the way. You should clip that.
okay, can I? Um, so like it, but it's an overall fun album that does some weird, freaky shit. Her stuff on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Like it like doing cool, weird stuff like that is in her. And this just felt like, I don't know. Now it's just become a thing she has to do, which is just like big butt stuff. Oh, I'm here I am in front of big butt depicted by fruit. Here I am in a beach ball factory. Here I am in just a big tub of bubbles. And there's 4 or 5 other people with you, and it's like some eyes wide shut, and it's all like colorful and candy coated. And I'm just like, I don't know. I can't. I think I've grown as a person. I can't do it anymore.
Well, that makes that makes one of us on this podcast that has done some growing up in their lifetime. I think one thing, there's probably several songs on here that are going to be like lighting the club up. I mean, they're definitely going to be playing a lot. I think on top 40 radio, you're going to hear some of these songs a lot. I think I do prefer if she would go more towards like the Doja Cat kind of weirdo vibes. I think she does excel with that sort of thing. And she can sing pretty well too. I think that's something that, you know, she didn't do she did a lot on this album, but I feel like she was kind of like affecting different voices a lot when she was singing on this album. It wasn't like the super bass singing that she did like when she first came out. You know, I think if she could go back to some of that, and maybe not such like the kind of bubblegum sound like that one was,
Absolutely.
but just bring something else into it. You know, I can certainly hear what you're saying. If she comes out with another like 2 albums like this, I'm going to be very bored. You know, I think this album for me, because I hadn't really like listened to the rest of her discography other than, like I said, what was on the radio. So probably, I don't know, she's probably had a lot of hits. There's probably 15 or so Nicki Minaj songs that I'm familiar with, a few of them that I'm like know pretty well. And I think this one, there might be one or two that make it to that category, but as far as listening to it goes, like for it being that long, I didn't personally feel like it was getting slogged down that much. And I can hearing the criticisms about it, I could certainly, they're valid. I think if it's not the kind of thing you like, this is not going to be the kind of thing that you're going to like. And I think if you love samples and you love that like kind of top 40 sound, you're going to love this album. And I think if you're looking for something deeper, go find SZA. Go find some Doja Cat. Go find some Megan the Stallion. I think if you want that out of your hip hop, you can find that a lot of places. I don't think you're going to get that here. I would like to see Nicki Minaj take a swing at that. I think this album was good for now, and I thought, I'll probably play some of these songs, and honestly, they're probably going to end up on my end of the year list next year for Spotify, just for the simple fact of how many times I've listened to them this week.
Jeez, this is so mystifying to me because again, you name drop SZA, and a year that we got SOS, we get this, and I can't even like quantify the difference that is. And I look at it, and again, like the album Queen, which I wasn't crazy about. Good form. I'm not sure if that's a good song or not, but I sure love the hell out of it. It's great, and it beats the dick off of everything on this album. So I just like I'm so shocked we had such an opposite reaction. I thought we'd be somewhere closer to the middle. But again, I love this shit.
Yeah, and I think it's the like you saying that when I was listening to it, the criticism that you're saying like never crossed my mind. I was enjoying it the whole way through. But you like mentioning these things about it, I can see where people are going to have the issue with that. I think she does rely very heavily on samples. I like that. I think if people want something more original, it's not here. Moving along. Go to those other albums like we were talking about. Go to SOS. That album was fantastic. Now, I don't think this was a better album than SOS. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I just remember going back and I think I was a lot more excited about Good News when I first heard it because it was new and exciting. But then when you go back and listen to that album, and I don't know when the last time you have, but it's a lot of just kind of the same. Very good at doing that. But, you can only have so many 7-irons in the bag, and I think that was a problem I ran into with, eventual re-listens of Good News, and probably the same issue I'm going to run into here. But this one has the benefit of being now, and Good News has the detriment of having existed for a while and me listen to it quite a bit.
My last listen of Good News was literally 3 weeks ago. And I remember thinking, God damn, this is still so good. Because it is exactly the same. It's just, it's just enough to keep it interesting. It is, to quote Reno, rock solid. And I appreciate it, much like the stallion herself. The album is a stallion. It just plants and it says what it came there to say, and it does what it came there to do. And I really, really enjoy it. It goes fucking hard. So I'm even more shocked in many ways to hear that you've gone and turned your back on the stallion.
Well, I wouldn't say that's too dangerous, turn your back on the stallion, but I
kick you right in the head.
It's the album I thought of that I think was the most comparable, at least that we've done on the podcast. So folks can go back and like listen to what we had to say about that one versus what I have to say about this one. The difference you're going to see obviously is that we were both, I think, pumped about that Megan the Stallion album. And obviously we have different experiences with this Nicki Minaj album. And I think again, like you folks can draw your own conclusions about what you think about this one. I think I wouldn't be surprised if you fall on either side, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in the severe minority in how I feel about listening to this album. And maybe in the future I'll listen to it and be like, yeah, I guess I can see what they're saying and take that as more of my viewpoint than just, kind of acknowledging it as a valid thing. But for now, I'm going to listen to FTCU. I'm going to listen to that first song. What was the name of it? That's probably not a good argument for me that I can't remember the names of them.
That really good one.
Are You Gone Already? The first song. Beep Beep, another good one. Red Ruby to Sleaze. I mean, they're just great. First of all, great song names. I mean, when have they gotten only Coheed has done better. Um, and I think it's something I'm going to go back and at least listen to those songs. And if you have a handful of songs that I'm going to go back and listen to on this album, like and actively will like doing so, I think you got a pretty good album there.
Okay. Well, I would say Cowgirl itself was worth the price of admission, and everything else was a steep drop off in every other direction. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, it's just clunked out for me. I can't even necessarily say it's bad as much as it was disappointing. We waited 5
Ooh.
years. I'm not mad, I'm
Ooh.
just disappointed.
But the thing is, and artists play this up like I haven't released an album in 5 years. There's probably been a dozen top 40 hits that Nicki Minaj has been on in that 5 years.
Well, sure, absolutely, but
So it's not as if we've been like waiting with bated breath to see Nicki Minaj perform again. It's can't come back when you never went away.
damn, when you say, like so I do agree, "How could I miss you if you won't go away?" And I was missing her bad, and then when it came out, it was Pink Friday 2, I was immediately hooked because I'm like, "Okay, well, how's she gonna pull this one off?" I was very excited for this album, and it just kinda clunked out on my poor little pea-picking heart.
See, I think this one for me. No, you know what? I'm not even going to make that comparison because
Do it.
you'll never forgive me.
Do it.
You'll
Do it.
never. I was
No,
going to
do it.
say so obviously so Bad Out of Hell 1 and 2 classic all-time great. We can put those say those are the and not saying that they're anywhere as low of quality as the first Pink Friday album. Um so put those as like that's the start. The Monster is Loose, like Bad Out of Hell 3 is like this one. Where it might not be as like good as her classic or as wow as her when she was new. This I feel like feels like a lot more of the same from Nicki Minaj, but because I didn't get super deep into Nicki Minaj, this album landed pretty well. But I think comparison to Pink Friday, as far as kind of what I understand about generally the public opinion of it, is they compare it similar like Bad Out of Hell 3, Monster is Loose is to Bad Out of Hell 1 and 2.
Interesting. The difference for me being all 3 Bad Out of Hell albums are objective masterpieces. You can look that up.
When was the last time you went through that Monsters Loose album?
Oh, recently, and let me tell you, it goes hard into schlock, but you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a
Hard in the
cheap
schlock.
imitation of Jim Steinman, and I salute everyone who tried.
Yeah, see that's and I think that's people's general consensus of this album. Like it's still Nicki Minaj. It's still got like still hits those same notes. It uses the same cookie cutters in a lot of places. I always enjoyed those cookie cutters. I thought they made great cookies. And I thought there was a lot of great cookies on this album.
Well, to quote her, "I tell him eat the cookie because it's good for him, and when he eat the cookie, he got good form." You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I'm gonna guess I know what you're gonna rate this album. I'm gonna go ahead and say stream it on this one. I think it's if you like party music, if you like club music, if you like just if you just like hip hop, go ahead and listen to this one. I don't know if you're gonna buy it. If you're a huge Nicki Minaj fan, I suppose so. I'm not gonna run out and spend my money on this one, but I will be happy to stream it again.
Maybe this is an unrealistic expectation to have, but I'm really, really waiting for an album or an artist or a song to reach out and grab me. Reach out and touch faith. I am just like really starved for something that's going to be like, ooh, the new hotness. And again, that might be an unrealistic expectation. And it's certainly an unrealistic expectation to put on someone like Nicki Minaj, even though you have every reason in the world to believe that she's capable of delivering that, which is what makes it disappointing when it's like, you were supposed to be the chosen one. All of which is a very dramatic way of saying, I guess I've got the end of the years. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We're this is our last album we're going to review this year. And I was like, boy, I hope it's a good one. And instead it was just this like incredibly divisive gift. And I'm waiting for something to reach out and hold my cold dead little hand. So until that time, I got to give this a skip it.
Yeah, I thought that was coming. But you know what? I have a feeling we're gonna start out the year pretty strong. I don't know when the Dua Lipa album is coming out, but I have a feeling that one's gonna be pretty strong. And I would imagine that's got to be. I mean, it can't be much past like February that it's coming out if they released Houdini, what 3 weeks ago now at this point. I mean, it's a bit ago that that song came out, and I think we're gonna see a Dua album pretty early on in the year. Any other artists that you think are gonna?
I think Future Islands and Green Day. Green Day has got a
Yes,
couple singles out
yes.
now. Future Islands been dropping it for a while. I reacted to King of Sweden
Mhm.
years ago. Great fucking song. Some of the other stuff, some of the other singles not great, but you know, benefit of the doubt. So yeah, there's some stuff, and that's just off the top of my head. So there's gonna be some good stuff in 2024.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
and
no, go
yeah,
ahead.
I think we're gonna have a fresh slate. Hopefully, we start off with a banger or a few bangers because it was what SZA. Who else did we do right off?
Margot Price.
Margot Price was right at the beginning. I mean, we had a year, and I think folks are going to be able to hear about that year that we had coming up in a couple of weeks here. So keep your eyes out, folks. We're gonna have our end of the year music awards from Out on That Line. It's gonna be what our third annual.
No, we've done it every single year. I think this is the fourth.
Number 4, Quattro. You don't get that kind of consistency anywhere else. Maybe some other places, but not the kind of quality at the same time. So come back. We're gonna tell you about our favorite albums of the year, our worst albums of the year. Maybe you'll hear about this album on that end of the year award show. Probably not from me, but I can think of a category Alex might use for it. And let us know if there's anything you thought this year just blew you away, good or bad. Let us know so maybe we'll talk about it on those end of the year award shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but only if you all have been. Are you on the nice list or are you on the naughty list? And that's an important thing to pin down now because the episode comes out on Christmas as our gift to you, a $90 value, yours free. Let's just put it that way. Okay. But if we put you on the naughty list, you're not going to like what happens. I'm not going to tell you because, much like the shark in Jaws, it's what your mind can conjure that's way scarier than what you're seeing. So you won't see what's coming. Point being, don't be naughty. You need to go to youtube.com/C/out on that line. And you need to subscribe. You need to like this video. You need to turn notifications on so you know when videos come out. And you need to, for God's sakes, if you take one thing away from this, you gotta leave a comment. It's gotta be quality on our end or it's not worth it. You gotta just leave us a comment at youtube.com/C/out on that line. So just remember, we're waiting here just positively keen on stuffing your stocking on Christmas. The only way we can do that is if you show up and reach deep into our sack at youtube.com/C/out on that line.
I think that was your best one yet. what a what a way to close out the last album review of the year of 2023. Next time you see us, I think it's going to be end of the year awards time. So catch us then. Get ready to party. Get out the champagne because we're going to close out 2023 with a bang. And that rhymed. Good for us. Until next time.